All right, welcome to the latest episode of the Colman Power Organic Fitness Podcast. I have my latest guest here in front of me. You could say through Zoom. So I suppose, Hayley, say hello to the listeners.
Hello, everyone.
So I brought Hayley on as we connected through social media, through, I suppose, a mutual friend, and we would be about similar mindset on about health. But I want Hayley to, I suppose, give herself an elevator pitch on who she really is, what she does, and we can go from there.
Sounds good. So I actually help people to heal their hormones and grow a booty. That's kind of my elevator pitch, is like you get the best of both worlds in an ancestral way through ancestral nutrition. So like eating through whole food, plant-based, animal-based diet. And I basically help people to achieve all of their health goals from the inside out, and nutrition being their foundation.
Right, and just you mentioned those words, I suppose, ancestral way of eating. Could you expand on that? Because for most people, they don't realize and would love to know a little bit more about what you do and the foods that you eat on a regular basis, both for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, so ancestral to me means eating as our ancestors did. So kind of going back in time, as it were, to eating closer to home, eating the way that our families did centuries ago, removing the processing of all of the synthetically created foods and the highly processed, highly palatable foods, going back to basics, going back to eating from the land, growing your own food, eating nose to tail foods, like the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the ears, and all of that, utilizing the whole animal and understanding that animals are a whole food, nutritionally dense food, and not just thinking that I got to eat kale to be healthy.
You're so right. And even to maybe expand on that point, it's something that we have to use for the future. Whether you eat a high percentage of meats in your diet or not, you're vegetarian, you're vegan, either or, I must stress the point that animals and their manure is something that has to be used for the growth, especially in or in organic compared to conventional. It's something that gives massive nutrients to the soil, whether it's chickens, whether it's beef, or maybe sheep. All those things are something that must be incorporated into the land to give back nutrients to the soil, instead of using the synthetic fertilizers, which are commonly used on large production of fruits, vegetables.
Absolutely. Yeah, what I think most people sort of get caught up in is like, we tend to be extremists, so like it's kind of one or the other. I have to be vegan, vegetarian, or I have to be like all on the meat side. It's like, no, we need both in our diets and in our world to be like holistically sustainable, both in our nutrition and our sustainability for the planet and the health of the planet. Like we need animals and plants, it's not one or the other. So I really advocate the balance of that.
I love that you said that. I really hate it. That's why I suppose I resonate with you. It's not that you have to. I hate being put in a box. It was one thing when I was in school. It was
God.
oh, are you hanging around with the farmers, or are you hanging around with the sports lads? And I was like, why can't I literally hang out with the two lads? Do you know what I mean? Why can't I do two? And then it's like, oh, are you vegetarian? Oh, are you a meat eater? And then like kind of going, I eat all those things.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, for some reason we gravitate towards one side, or you're on my side or you're not with me at all. It's like, no, can't we just have both? And I think that's what people really strive for is that balance between the two, but really understanding where that is or how to do it, I think is kind of maybe the challenging part. So I really teach clients to figure that out for themselves and what they're comfortable with, but not fitting themselves into a diet camp,
Yeah. That's very important. And going towards the likes of eating nose to tail, and I suppose liver and offal being something that you would consume yourself, could you talk about a little bit of the benefits of that and how you have it in your diet?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's hard to find organs here in Ireland. Like if I wanted to buy chicken hearts or something like that, I find it difficult to find. I don't know if you find that as well, but I've been able to find some beef liver. So I've incorporated beef and sheep liver into my diet, and the benefits are like the saying in the ancestral sort of meat, the carnivore world, is that it's nature's multivitamin. And it really is, because if you think about what the liver does in the body, is it filters out all of the toxins that we don't need in the body, but it holds on to all of the nutrients that we do need for the body to circulate it through the rest of the animal's body. So it's the same sort of thing in the cow or the sheep. So if you're ingesting that, you're getting all of those really dense vitamins and minerals from the liver of that animal. And it's just like, there's something about it. It's like a superpower almost. It just gives you this like vitality. And people are really afraid of it. They're like, I don't know how to eat this, or I don't know, it tastes disgusting. And I will say, I'm not a huge fan of the taste myself. So
How do you eat it?
I'm figuring it out, but a few ways that I figured it out. So I would buy like one or like half a portion of beef liver, chop it up into small little portions and put them in ice cube trays and freeze them, and then throw them in my smoothie. That's a way that I figured out how to hide the taste. You get the vitamin in there, you get all of your nutrients into the smoothie, and you don't even really taste it. So that's kind of the best way that I found to just get it.
And that's absolutely fine. I would definitely agree with, I suppose, combining it with foods that will, I suppose, over empower that taste of the some people. It is an acquired taste for individuals, that's for sure.
Yes. Yeah. But if you want to be really hardcore with it, like I've tried chopping it up into small little chunks, drizzling it in like a little bit of maple syrup and salt, and just like popping it in. It's challenging, but like if you really want to like put some hair on your chest and like get tough with it, you could try it.
That's what a brave heart of that is.
Yeah.
Right, Hayley, I suppose going towards about comparing myself and yourself, organic fitness and the likes of ancestral way of living. I'm going to expand on, I suppose, the whole ethos of organic fitness. It's really about getting outside, maybe things that people don't do enough of, getting direct sunlight on your skin, grounding first thing in the morning, some form of exercise. Why? Because steps is a form of exercise, because you're moving your body for whatever fitness level you're at. You still have to, and move from A to B. We often just roll up out of bed from the electric blanket, typically turned on in the winter. We go straight from there to the kitchen, turn on the artificial lights, put on the kettle, have a cup of coffee. Then we go into the car, we drive to work. Again, you're in an enclosed environment. We're coming into, I suppose, again, more artificial light in the winter. Go straight from the car, the office to car, back to the house. And again, you turn on the television and there's poor food choices throughout that. Why? Because your body is not thriving. And I incorporate in most certainly exercises for people, whether they're home-based exercises, they're eating more, or gym-based, they're eating more whole foods, more single ingredient, local, organic produce being the gold standard. And of course, it's most certainly difficult to consume everything organic, and I do appreciate that. But the best thing that I can get people to do is grow a small bit of your own. You don't have to have a glass house, a polytunnel as big as 30 meters that people are growing in. But what you do need to do is you need to do the things that are simple. You need to grow in pots if you don't have a garden. You need to grow in a veg patch if you do. You need to get yourself a polytunnel or a glass house, because that's something that we used to do not too long ago. Like our parents or our grandparents would have most certainly, everyone would have had potatoes. And potatoes are not bad also as well. I love white potatoes. Straight out of the ground, they're a carbohydrate, which is the body's first source of energy. Then you have the likes of tomatoes, cucumbers, amazing, high in antioxidants. And the advantage of tomatoes is they're actually something that can actually brighten your skin color. And Hayley, you most certainly have a vibrant color as well. And that's down through your lifestyle and your foods. So I suppose that's the whole emphasis of people eating and living an organic fitness lifestyle, whole food approach, sunlight for the likes of improved skin health, and in on top of that, definitely improved sleep, which is one of the pillars of health.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you're explaining, or what you're alluding to, is like moving closer to nature. And I think that's what this is really all about. For when I think about organic fitness, I've never heard it in that way before. And I think it's so brilliant. But I think what you're trying to convince people to do is just move closer to nature, because it's only, like you said, been in recent times where we've moved so far away from nature that nearly everything around us is artificial, including like our laptops and our phones and all that, even though it's, brought us together, which is so special and so cool that we can connect with so many different people all over the world. But we've lost the balance. We've lost the balance of like all or nothing. We're all artificial these days, and it's doing some really incredibly damaging things to our health, especially on a mental level, physical, emotional level, like all of those levels of our health are all being affected because we're just moving so far away from nature. So when I think of organic fitness, I think, okay, how can we move closer to nature? What has nature provided us? How can we move even just one step closer? Because for a lot of my clients, like when you speak about all these things, like growing a polytunnel and like eating organic and eating liver and like all of these things that we need to do to live an organic lifestyle, it can be overwhelming for people. They're like, well, I'm not doing any of that. So shit, I gotta like revamp my entire life. And it's like, no. One step at a time. You know, what is the biggest impact that you can make with the smallest step, right? Of getting closer to nature, closer to an organic lifestyle, getting closer to removing yourself from the artificials and into a more balanced life. And I think that's really important. And what you're advocating for is like, it's so cool to have that organic and the fitness part of it. I just think it's brilliant. So.
It certainly is. You're giving me massive compliments on my own podcast here. Hayley, I suppose you to tell me a little bit how you were with your clients able to balance their hormones, just for optimal health, just for the listeners that are and the viewers on YouTube.
Yeah, so hormones are a tricky thing. My specialty is really with women in balancing their hormones because I can relate to them more. But the first thing really is just to look at is your diet and what sort of things are contributing to throwing off your hormones and how can you mitigate that. So one major thing is an overconsumption of carbohydrates for females, especially as they get into their 30s and 40s. Too many carbohydrates can throw off the balance of your other macronutrients, so proteins and fats. And proteins are essential for your satiation. They're essential for muscle building. They're essential for your brain health and your mental health, your digestive health. And the fats are going to be supportive for your mental health as well and your hormones. So if you're having too many carbohydrates, especially for females, you're missing out on those other two essential nutrients. So that's kind of the first thing that we look at is the balancing of your macronutrients and then some of your other things that are coming into the body from the skin and your airways, because people don't realize that those are two other ways that we ingest nutrients is through the airways and the skin. So what sort of toxins are coming into your body that may be contributing to your hormone health? So your air quality, like, do you have plants in your house? Are you cleaning your house with chemical cleaners? Are you wearing perfumes? You know, all these sorts of things can be affecting the hormones. And so we want to try and one by one remove that, not do a full overhaul, okay, overwhelming people's lives, but just one by one, what sort of things can we remove? And then for your skin health too, like what are you cleansing with in the shower? What sort of products are you using on your skin? Because your skin is your biggest organ, right? And everything that goes on your skin goes into your bloodstream, circulates through your body, and affects everything that goes into your body. Your liver, your hormones, your metabolic health, your mental health, all of these things are affected by your nutrition, your airways, and your skin. So those are kind of the first three components that we look at, but it's mostly nutrition because that's the hardest thing for people to really grab a hold of. They're like, what, you want me to eat more fats? What? Is that gonna make me fat? And like, there's a bit of a trust thing. Like, can I trust you with this? I'm like, I'm living proof that this works. So like, you can trust me, but it takes a while for people to kind of jump on board with it because the narrative around fats especially has been so skewed. It's like low fat has been like the 80s, 90s sort of propaganda that we've been bombarded with, right? Low fat and high carbohydrates and grains and all this. And it's doing some detriment to people's hormones, especially females.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's the fact that I wish if they could have changed the word from healthy fats to something else, to just anything, call it triangles. Oh yeah, proteins, carbohydrates, and triangles, because the two they correlate too similar. And I just, for so many different people say, fats, no problem. I'm definitely not eating those. Like, do you know what I mean? There's too many fats in egg yolks. I just can't have it in my diet. No thanks. But yeah, that's just a small point. I'd love you to go further back, just to pull out the likes of the cleaning products that you use in your house. Is that something you could tell us a little bit more about? What do you use and what do you recommend for people in their homes? Because
Sure.
a lot of people may suffer as a result of that autoimmune diseases. Mild asthma was something that I suffered with, and again was able to eradicate and majorly improve since switching up from the likes of the products that I do use.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ironic because you think cleaning supplies are going to be clean and healthy for you because they're cleaning your home, but there's so many chemicals in conventional cleaning supplies. So I've recently done a total detox of all of my cleaning supplies, and I now only use like 3 or 4 products. My rule of thumb basically is like, if you wouldn't cook with it or consume it, then I probably wouldn't either put it on your body or clean your house with it. So for a cleaner, I use a very simple Castile soap mixed with water and a few drops of essential oils. And that basically cleans my entire house. It's very, very clean. There's no synthetic scents in there. There's no synthetic ingredients. It's very clean. And it does actually a really good job at cleaning as well. And then for windows and mirrors, we use vinegar with water. And again, a couple essential oil droplets and baking soda and vinegar. And that's it. That's it. You don't need anything else. Like if you hear on the radio or hear people talk about all these different cleaning things that you need for the oven and the floors are different and the fridge is different, the bathroom's different, bullshit. It's all bullshit. They're just trying to sell you something. You don't need it.
You're so right. I love it. Your point.
Okay, good.
I want you to tell me what for the women and both the men out there in looking after their skin health, and you mentioned exactly that fact that the skin is the largest organ in the body and so important to what you put on it, whether it's creams, it's makeups, it's aftershaves or any perfumes. What do you currently use and what do you recommend, or do you use deodorant? It's another thing that I want you to tell the listeners a little bit about.
Yeah, so products for like face and skin can be a little bit more challenging because things that are out there, if they are sort of on the natural side, they can be very expensive. So I would say start again with the biggest impact. So what's one thing that you use the most of? If you are like someone who uses aftershave or perfume every single day, that's an easy elimination. Just get rid of it. Please, for the love of God, because it's doing probably the most detriment to your hormones and your body, your mental health, and your overall health. And it can be easily replaced with essential oils. So that was probably the first thing that I switched out, was just got rid of all my perfumes, everything that had a synthetic scent or perfume smell in it, and just replaced it with a natural essential oil. So that's what I would say, number one. And then number two, what's the second thing that can be the biggest impact to change? Maybe your soap. You know, we shower on a day-to-day basis. So get some soaps that are naturally made with essential oils, or you can try and make your own, or you can find some from your local area. You know, there's lots of soap makers out there. They're using really nice organic soaps, and you can use them on your face and on your body. So currently I'm using I'm gonna have to check which soap. It's a new one that I've just started using, and I really love it. But that would probably be like the top two that I would sort of look at for your skin health. And then anything for like moisturizing, just use coconut oil, you know?
God, I love that you just said that. Like, because sunscreen is majorly toxic, and it's really important to even just mention here that a lot of people are afraid of the sun. And touching on that point, it's not the heat you're looking for, it's the sunlight. So that's why they recommend, and I would recommend, sunlight first thing in the morning, building up your tolerance to the sun. And as a result of that, in the evening is another time that people don't actually realize that it's really important to get it's full spectrum sun that you're getting, minus the harsh, I suppose, heat that we associate the negative effects with the likes of the sun.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something too with seed oils. Having an abundance of seed oils in your diet actually does detriment to the skin when it's exposed to sunlight. So that's something to maybe look at, is just reducing your amount of seed oils. So that would be your cottonseed, your rapeseed, canola oils, all of the like lower grade safflower oil, that sort of thing. Move more towards coconut oil or butter in your diet, and just build up, like you said, build up a tolerance to the sunlight. Use coconut oil. Don't go out in the sun like at the highest peak of the day, like 2 o'clock, 2 to 3 o'clock, something like that. And there's no reason to be afraid of it. Like that, the sunlight literally gives us life. How could it be bad for us, you know? And then like you said, the SPFs, all of the sunscreens, they're just full of chemicals. Like, have you heard of the banana boat that just got taken off the shelf?
Yeah.
It's not the only one that has all of those shit ingredients in them. Like, just please do yourself a favor. Just stop using all the synthetic products on your skin. We really take the skin for granted, you know, because it's taking on things all the time. Like right now, there's bacteria in the air that it's filtering. There's, you know, the synthetic materials that you're wearing potentially, or the deodorants that you're wearing, all the sorts of things on your skin. It's working hard. So you really want to take care of it by providing it with more natural ways of protecting itself and utilizing the nutrients that you can give it, like coconut oil, rather than sunscreen.
So important, so important.
Yes.
Hayley, I'd love for you to tell and expand on the point, maybe on foods that you're currently eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and staying away from the likes of seed oils such as we mentioned, and why it's so important to get good healthy fats in your diet is because some seed oils are typically can be sprayed. We'll take the example of the vegetable oils, and they're halogenized, they're man-made. In on top of that, there's also the fact that your skin is made up of proteins and fats. That's why they're essential. And the people who do have, I suppose, end up getting poor skin health when they expose it to the likes of the sunlight. It's because why? Your skin is made up of the fats that you are eating. So if you're eating sunflower oil, which is high omega-6, which is inflammatory, that's really important. But I would love you to, I suppose, tell people about your diet habits and what you recommend to individuals.
Yeah, sure. On the point of like fats, removing things like you said, like the seed oils, and replacing it with butter. Like, can we just talk about butter for a minute? Like, yeah. Butter is like demonized for being this like very unhealthy sort of product. And I'm like, no, butter is a superfood. Butter is a natural food that comes from an animal source. And for some reason it's been demonized, but it's actually really good for our diet. And so basically what I've done in terms of oils is I've switched out all of my cooking oils and just used butter. I'm currently using butter and coconut oil, and that's it. I use a bit of olive oil for like on top of salads and that kind of thing, but I won't cook with it. I'll usually choose butter as my cooking oil. And just the reason being is like, it has a low smoke point. So when you cook it, when you heat it, it doesn't cause this high smoke point like your seed oils do, which cause inflammation in the body. And so what we're trying to do is reduce the inflammation by using low smoke point oils like coconut oil and butter. So that's my point on butters and oils and that sort of thing. But in terms of my diet, it's fairly, what I'll say, Colman, right now is it changes all the time depending on my goals. But right now I'm really focused on moving more towards a paleo side of things. So what that means is like less grains, less oats, less bread, less rice, and more potatoes, more protein, more fats, more steak. I'm having more steak than I ever had in my entire life, and I feel incredible. And when I tell clients this, when they're like, oh, I need to be eating more protein, well, like, can I have some beef? I'm like, girl, can you have steak like 3 times this week? They're like, what? You want me to eat steak? Like, yes, eat steak, grass-fed organic steak. Again, this has been demonized some way, somehow has been demonized as like this fatty, unhealthy protein source. Yet it is so essential, especially for females and their hormones. And it's a really great, dense, nutritious food that we're just not getting in our diet much anymore. So that's what I'm going to say, like, about my nutrition habits is like things are changing a lot, but it's mostly focused on proteins and less carbohydrates in the terms of grains and that sort of thing.
Very good. Yeah. And how did you, I suppose, get first interested in being as healthy and having glowing skin like you currently do right now?
What first got me interested? I don't know. That's a very difficult question to answer because I've been on this health journey for a really long time. But recently, what's influenced me to eat things more like beef and butter and liver and raw oysters and raw honey and all that sort of stuff, the first person that comes to mind is actually the Liver King. I recently shared with you who the Liver King is, right? And he's just been a major influence in just getting back to ancestral habits, getting back to how we were eating way before all of this synthetically produced packaged foods came about our grocery system, you know? So yeah, I think he's probably been the biggest influence. And then just testing things out for myself. What works for me? You know, does eating steak 2 or 3 times a week work for me? Currently it does, you know, and that may change as I get older and my hormones change. Maybe when I become a mother, you know, things might change then, or like, you know, so it's a consistently changing thing. It's really important to, especially I say this for clients, is like, pay attention to what's happening. If you're on a specific diet, like let's say you're a vegetarian and you know things are working well for you, feel really energized, you're losing weight and you feel really good, and then all of a sudden you don't feel good anymore, things are starting to decline. It's like you need to notice this and be okay with making changes. I used to be a vegan and it was challenging for me to start eating meat again, but I knew something was not right at some point because I didn't feel as good as I did when I first started eating vegan. I was vegan for about 5 years. And then all of a sudden I had some digestive issues and I was lethargic and I was starting to get acne in my skin and things were just not optimal. And so I had to make a change. And so I advocate that for clients and for anybody who's in a specific diet camp. You know, there can be challenges with like changing what you eat and knowing what's best for you. So you have to be really crystal clear and aware of like how your body's changing and reacting to different foods.
That's so amazing that you've went through the different stages, and that happens with anybody, I suppose, who's into health and really is willing to try different things. I most certainly as well have tried for, I suppose, clients that I wanted to know how to hit, I suppose, a certain amount of protein, being on a vegetarian diet, being on a vegan diet, and combining incomplete proteins to make complete protein sources. And just like that as well, when you are doing something and you're looking for a change, it's so important that you start to incorporate in different things, because you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. That's the definition of insanity.
It is, yeah, it is. There's something about sticking, and I don't mean to pick on vegans, but this is a very easy example to go to, is like people get into this vegan world and they start to identify with being vegan. It becomes their entire world, you know, and I can understand that in some aspects, but when it starts to become a detriment to your health, you're not doing yourself any justice or the world any justice if you're not living your best, most authentic, most vibrant self. So you have to kind of like dial down the ego a little bit, release yourself from that labeling of being vegan, and do something that's going to be helpful for your health instead of detrimental. So the vegans tend to really struggle with that. And I don't mean to pick on them. I have a lot of vegan friends and a lot of vegetarian friends, but I just find that world is very much like that.
Yeah, and it's all right for people to, I suppose, have diets specific to them. Why? Because everyone is completely different, whether they're ethics, religion based, ethos. The whole idea of it is we're all different and very all individual, and that's why it's great that you most certainly work with clients to help them on their individual goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to, I suppose, before we wrap it up, you maybe to give 3 points, simple points that people, listeners or viewers of this show, to take, I suppose, a step towards a more ancestral way of living. Your 3 takeaway tips.
3 takeaways. Well, definitely number 1 would just be to eat more whole foods. Like I'm all about adding to the diet rather than removing, because we feel like we're like restricted enough with things. So eat more whole foods. And if you're afraid of like gaining weight, then just cut out some of the shit. Eat more whole foods. That would definitely be number 1 for Ancestral. Number 2 would be start to align your circadian rhythm with the sun. So wake up when the sun is up and go to bed when the sun goes down. And this can be a bit challenging in the wintertime because like over here, the sun goes down at like 4 p.m. in the winter time. But generally speaking, like if you can wake up when the sun is up and then get your face with the sunlight and your feet on the ground, this is like one of the most underrated things that you can do to utilize your energy to like have your natural cycles in tune with the sun. It's like one of the most underrated things. So that would probably be number 2. And number 3 is just have a scan of your life, of your surroundings, and find one major thing that you can move closer to nature with. So is it your cleaning supplies? Is it what you store all of your food in? Are you storing your food in plastic? Or are you storing your food in jars or glass? Are your clothes all synthetically created? Do you have any organic cotton? You know, pick one thing and just start to slowly change that. Add some plants to your, like just one small thing to change in your surroundings to move closer to nature, I say would be the 3rd thing.
Yeah. It's all, I suppose, that fact that the compound effect of doing one thing followed by another. And this is a quote, like my mother isn't super, we'll call it quote unquote, healthy, but right now she told me something that was kind of mind blowing. To walk 1,000 steps, you have to just take one to start. I was like, ma'am, unreal. Out of nowhere. It was yesterday. Shout out to my mom. I know, unreal. I was like, mom, you should write a book. She said, no, she'd be so embarrassed though.
Go mom, I love that.
Yeah. So shout out to Peg Power based in Waterford, but you're getting your podcast intro here.
I love that.
Hey,
yeah, she's so right.
Oh,
she's so right. You just
so key.
You got to take the first step. You know,
Yeah.
We're not climbing mountains. We're walking the path.
Yeah, we're walking out the door. We're getting up out of bed.
That's it.
We're moving towards a healthier version of ourselves.
Yes.
Hayley, I suppose before I let you go, I want you to tell me where is the best place for people to contact you if they want to work with you, or I suppose we can little bit of a note drop here. There'll definitely be something happening between myself and yourself in the near future. So stay tuned for events based off this podcast today.
Yes, absolutely. The best place people can find me is on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time and most of my content is there. I also have TikTok and I'm recently on Twitter, but Instagram, honeycomb.health is the best place to find me. And I'm always in my DMs. So if you guys have any questions or you just want to come in and pop in and say hello, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions or support you guys in any way. So
brilliant. I suppose that's a great way to wrap up the likes of this week's show. Thanks so much, Hayley, for coming on with me. And I'd love to end these podcasts by saying stay tuned, stay classy, and keep it organic.